Hey guys, Montel here, and thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of Let's Blunt with Montel. And I'm so excited to have a guest on I had today. Matter of fact, I even visited his shop a couple of years back, so I'll give you a little update on who he is. But let's talk a little bit before we get started. You know, times have been really kind of crazy right now when it comes to cannabis. As we saw very clearly during this last election, you know, the people across the nation have spoken. But now we're starting to see, just the same ways we see politicians pushing back against any idea of an impeachment, politicians are trying their damnedest to push back against cannabis, something that the people have already said unequivocally that they want. Take a look at California, an initiative that was put in place about a week ago, where California legislator is trying to get all dispensaries and all legal cannabis sales entities to take down billboards if the billboard happens to be on any street or any highway that does interstate commerce. So if it leaves your state and goes to another state, they want the billboards taken down. What? I mean, this is so stupid. The people have already spoken in California and said, we want cannabis. If they want cannabis, then they want to know where to go to get it. And we should allow them the right to go to get it. But now we've got dumbasses who are just trying their best to figure out what way they can, since they lost the initiative, to throw a monkey wrench in it to see if they can slow down a movement that is a rightful movement to the masses. And that is, you know, people who want plant-based, efficacious medication, if that's what they're choosing for, or those who just decide that, you know what, I don't want to have the liquor that you've been shoving down my throat for the last 100 years any longer. I'd like to switch over. Or maybe I want to do both. But maybe I just want a choice. And you know, when we have conservatives who talk so much about states' rights, that is a right that was given to the states. The federal government has spoken out about this over and over and over again over the last 10 years. So why try to stop a movement that has already been legally passed and an opportunity that people have? Why try to take it away? And you're going to say, well, Montel, you know, we said you can have legal business. We didn't tell you could advertise. Excuse me. I go into any neighborhood across this country and I find liquor stores advertising up and down every highway, any street they want to. I mean, you know, I also see pharmaceutical companies advertising pharmaceuticals any way that they want to. So why not allow for the advertisement of a legal product? I just don't get it. I don't understand it. And then when we add to that, you know, we're sitting here coming out of COVID, talking about business and talking about how we want to get the economy going again. And we know that, you know, the cannabis industry across the board, whether it be for the cannabis, meaning CBD and other products, and also even THC-laden cannabinoids, cannabis, has been a pretty much recession-proof industry across this country. So why are we trying our best now to slow down its progress, other than the fact that there are just people out there who are pure and simple haters who still are pissed off that they've lost the tool that they had in their toolkit to just arrest people of color and to put people of color away and put them in prisons. And then let's talk about that for a second, because the majority of states that have passed some form of legislation when it comes to cannabis have added or tacked on to the end of that legislation some component that's called equity, where supposedly those communities that were the most impacted by the war on drugs would have an opportunity to participate in the upshot of cannabis. But as we look at it across the board in this country, clearly over 80 to 85% of the cannabis, legal cannabis in America, is being sold by people who are not part of the equity program. There are some people who say that in some states, less than 2% of the people who have licenses are equity participants. And it's ridiculous where, you know, again, when you just follow the rhetoric of today, I mean, they want to try to shut this industry down because they lost an opportunity to continue to arrest people of color And I'm going to say it over and over again, but take a look at it across this country, and no matter what state you're in, the majority of people, 80% of the people who are serving time in prison for cannabis violations are people of color, period. And don't think that that's just a coincidence. It has never been a coincidence. It was always set up this way. It was made illegal to do this way. We lost an enslavement tool with the end of the Civil War, and those who really wanted the way to figure out how can we keep locking up more and more brown and black people, they decided to make cannabis illegal to do so. And the rest of the world is now starting to speak out and say, stop. We're sick of the fact that you've taken a viable, efficacious, plant-based medicine off the table that can be used for so many different things. There's an article that just came out about a week ago, and I'll cover this on my Free Thinking podcast, but I'll talk about it a little bit here. An article just came out a couple weeks ago discussing the fact that they have been looking at certain cannabinoids and the effect of some of the phytocannabinoids that seem to have an anti-inflammatory response in the lungs of those people who have been diagnosed with COVID. Come on now. How crazy is it that we can't even utilize a medication that might help us during the worst pandemic of the last 100 years because there are those who don't want to validate its efficacious use? Well, our guest today, is a guest who, when I talk about equity programs, he's really the guy he's our first guest. Is he went from getting arrested for selling cannabis to owning the first equity-owned dispensary in the world, Blunts and Moore Dispensary in Oakland, California, that I visited. This incredible man is a true testament to walking your own path. He's the owner of Proud Papa's Clothing, Proud Papa's Detailing. He worked as a detail trainer at Tesla and has over 30 years of auto detailing experience. He graduated from Oaksterdam University in 2008 with a degree in cannabis, and he's been the co-host of Talking Bluntly and is a fifth-generation Oakland native. Tucky Blunt, welcome to Let's Be Blunt today. Thanks so much for being a part of the show, my friend.
Man, thanks for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure. Honor and a pleasure.
Absolutely, sir. Well, it was an honor and a pleasure for you giving me the tour of your facility when I got an opportunity to come out there and visit. And I, to be honest with you, I always felt as I traveled around the country before COVID, I talked about your dispensary as an example of how it should be done. You guys did a great job with that. Let's go back for a second and talk a little bit about your history. I mean, I said you are a fifth generation cannabis user and a native in the Bay Area.
Yes.
Let's back up and talk about when was your first. You got introduced to cannabis very early on, did you not?
Yeah. Cannabis was never a secret in my family.
Your grandmother could use it.
Yeah, my grandmother's the first person to take me to a cannabis club. It was just we never knew cannabis as being illegal. I didn't really know cannabis was bad until I heard about DARE in the 80s, the Drug Abuse Resistance Education Program. And we still didn't think it was bad. But my history goes back to there, just being in the kitchen, sneaking in, granny playing dominoes, smoking weed. She's the first person I saw grow weed. I started selling weed at 16 with cannabis. I started selling cannabis at 16. And I always approached it as a business. My dad sold cannabis. My mom sold cannabis. And the way they stayed out of jail was not advertising they sold cannabis. They didn't go to a turf. So when I got into the field, I figured, I'm like, okay, the way I can avoid jail is not be on a turf. So I sold a lot of my cannabis to coworkers. I worked for Alameda County for 13 years. I've had a job since I was 13. I'm 41. And everywhere I've worked and employed at since I was 16, I made more money selling cannabis at work than I made at work. But I never thought ownership would be an option. I was told in 2001 when I first tried to open a dispensary that Black people would never own in cannabis. Shout out to Keith Stevenson, owner of Purple Heart in Oakland, who was the first Black dispensary owner anywhere in the world. He paved the way for me. He mentioned to Rebecca Kaplan and to Desley Brooks about the social equity program way in 06, 07, 08. And for me to be the beneficiary, the first beneficiary, and the only equity dispensary open in Oakland out of that program is huge. And it's just a testament. I'm really walking in the path that I put myself on in 1999 when I first heard about cannabis clubs. And I'm here now to show that we can do this. I can look like you, talk like you, dress like you, and own in cannabis. And that's what I'm here to show people.
And you, at one point in time, you did get arrested for selling,
Yes.
2004. Let's talk a little bit about that.
2004. So as I said, I wasn't a turf guy. I was from a turf, but I never sold on my turf. In between 2004 and 2005, I had a son coming, and I was in between jobs. As I actually started with Alameda County the Monday after I got arrested. So went to the turf, I'm like, let me make a few extra dollars. I knew I could do that. My granny was like, go ahead, just don't store nothing in my house. And it was cool. I had a good run. Good run. It was like, okay, this is what I was missing on the turf. I'm like, all right. And got told on by one of the guys I bought product from. And he knew that him telling on me what he thought telling on me was going to have me lose my job with the county, because I got arrested on Thursday, started work on a Monday. And he thought that was going to happen. When I got arrested, I had $80 worth of product on me and a registered firearm. My firearm was registered to me and everything. But being that I had both together, they charged me, and I got 10 years of felony probation with a 4-way search clause for my first offense ever. So I bailed out. I didn't stay in jail long. I bailed out the same night, but that's what I ended up getting convicted with.
That 4-way search charge, explain what that is to people so they understand.
So for people that don't know, a 4-way search clause is basically the legal right for any police officer to pull you over and search you, your car, or if you're a passenger in someone's car, they can search anything and all the people that you're in the car with. So for a long time, I couldn't even go places with other people because I would run the risk of getting them in trouble by doing whatever they wanted to do.
Right.
For a first offense, you know what I mean? So,
And let's talk about how disproportionate this has been, because, the majority of people that you saw being arrested, look like you, right?
Yes, sir. So like you said in the beginning, these laws are set up to throw us in jail. The mandatory minimum at that time when I caught my case for a first-time offender was 10 years of felony probation, because they're trying to set you up to where you can't get jobs. And if we can't get jobs, then we're right back to selling drugs on the street because we can't work anywhere. And in most cases, these are Black and brown people all the time. So though the social equity thing is dope, it's a good concept. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to reel it in or whatnot, but we shouldn't have to just have a social equity gift. We're supposed to be in the space. We make the trends in the space. We are the face of the space, but you want to give us an equity, like throw out and say, oh, that's going to work. Like, no, we should be top tier in this industry because we are the industry.
And how many Black-owned dispensaries are in the Bay Area or in your?
In the Bay Area that I know of personally, Kiefer Purple Heart, the longest running. Sean Richards just opened a dispensary in San Francisco with a partner with Cookies. He's the second equity-owned dispensary. Posh Green, which is Reese Benton out of Frisco, that's a third. The Hood Dispensary there are Hispanic-owned there in Santa Rosa, but overall, Montel, I think maybe 4 that I know about, maybe 5 tops.
Wow. And now, and let's explain so people understand, for you to be selected as an equity owner, you went through a lottery. Is that right?
Correct. So, it was literally a bingo ball lottery. I put our ball in 3rd overall, and they had to roll the balls around. If they picked your ball, you lost. If your ball was one of the 4 remaining balls remaining in the chamber, you won a license. So aside from all the path walking, like, I really believe wholeheartedly Montel was meant for me to be this person, because what are the odds of me putting a ball in 3rd overall and then it being one of the last 4? And it was really a lottery. And out of those 4 dispensaries that won that day, I'm the only one open. None of the other ones ever opened.
Wow.
Which is a bad thing for the equity program for me, because where are they at? Why aren't we open? Why are these other non-equity dispensaries able to be open and maintain, but we're not putting the energy into the equity to get them open? So
And was it just bad management of the other ones, or they just?
Honestly and truthfully, the equity program though is great. It was thrown out before we had any funding, so it kind of set up like a reverse war on drugs on the people. You have to be poor to qualify for equity, live in certain zip codes, et cetera, fit a certain demographic. Most of those people that's in that demographic have no business savvy, no money, no capital. I didn't have capital, but I had enough business savvy to go negotiate a deal where I lost no ownership in my store, no equity. But 95% of the people that are getting these licenses in this billion-dollar space have 50 cents worth of knowledge. And it's like it's been a setup for us to fail because we have to then go out and outsource funding from people who look at us as a cash cow and offer to buy us out for crumbs, and we don't know our value. We're going to take those crumbs. That's the most money we've ever seen. So,
Right. And now just talk about how, well, when you first got started, how long is has Blunts and what's it called, Blunts and More?
mhm. We
How
have been open since November 24th, 2018.
2018. And you ran into some issues a couple months back, right?
Yes. So when George Floyd was murdered, um, people took it upon themselves to riot. And May 31st to June 1st, the cannabis industry was under attack throughout the globe, but specifically in California. If you were associated with cannabis, you were robbed. My store was broke into overall for about 8 hours that night. I watched it on camera from home, just in utter shock. But what hurt me the most about all that is that I understand we fighting for rights and we're being disrespected by the police. What does it have to do with robbing a black business that is a black business? Um, so it was hard. It was hard, but what I did from that, Montel, I looked at it, I watched it for about 4 hours. I woke up about 30 minutes after I finally dozed off, and I said, let me be positive. So I reached out to Weed Maps, reached out to Burner, reached out to Saucy Extracts, which is ran by Jim Jones. And I was like, let's put a concert together virtually, and just raise money for the cannabis space. And I didn't raise any money for Blunts and More. I rose every dollar to give away to other shops. And I did that. It was called the I Got Five on it event. Scarface headline. Like the list of people that was on there was amazing. All just for me calling and saying, hey, we need to do this. And I called it like, the Don't Retaliate, Educate, because I'm from the streets. For those that don't know, like I'm really, really like, I'm not just a random dude that got this license. I've been selling weed on the streets of Oakland, in East Oakland, for 25 years. So I could have reacted violently. My phone was going crazy with people that wanted to pull up to my store with big guns to go shoot everybody. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. If somebody dies on my property, it kills the whole equity program. So let me think. Don't retaliate, educate. Let's educate these people that broke in my store that, hey, you can work in this business. You don't have to steal from this business. And that's what I've been on. You know what I mean? That's just me. We've talked and, but that's how I am. You know what I mean? We all should be able to eat in this space and make money in this space, whether it's not just growing and selling, but all the other ancillary things. There's so much for us to get into. So I just want to share that message.
Sure, no, absolutely. Now, what's been some of the biggest obstacles you've had now, other than that? That's a huge obstacle, but your first year before COVID,
Mm-hmm.
doing really well, right?
First year before COVID, we did excellent. We did about 5.2 million with bad hires, just overall the aches and pains of opening a small business. And we still did five. For me, I was looking forward to 2020. It was like, yes, 2020, it's going to be great. COVID happened. And to be totally honest, COVID really didn't stop cannabis sales. COVID actually increased cannabis sales. We had a little bit of fall off after like week 2, just because everybody had stocked up so much. But COVID didn't hurt Blunts and More. It was the robbery. And then my ex-partner, my former partner, she had some, different things she was doing that kind of like messed us up. But overall, I was looking forward to 2020. And like I'm looking forward to 2021. But that robbery set us back at least 6 to 8 months for sure.
Wow. And I mean, but when you're talking about what were some of the biggest obstacles when you first started getting
Oh, you know what? That's right. Capital. The two biggest obstacles in this cannabis space are education and funding. It sounds repetitive. I said in a lot of my interviews, it's like that can't be the only thing, but those are the two biggest things. And I don't mean education in the sense of picking up a book. I mean education is to just knowing what especially if you're an equity candidate, what your license is actually worth, and knowing that you need to own your license. You can partner with anybody but you don't have to give them any percentage of your license. They can be partners on your business, but not your license. That's education. Funding is just like I said, most of these people, even people that are non-equity, that's coming into the space just to get in the space, we're poor. Only big MSOs really have $3 to $5 million to give somebody to open up a store. What are they going to want for that 3 to 5? So for me, the biggest obstacles are the education and the funding. We lucked up. We were able to, Yahweh had it set to where we met the right people and was able to get the funding, no ownership. But we're just one story that had that success. Everybody's not going to have that. So we have to educate them on how to move in the space, and we have to fund them properly. I really believe us as Black people need to get together and link our funds like the other races do. If we do that, we can all survive in this space. But we've been conditioned to think we all are enemies of each other and we can't work together. I don't subscribe to that.
That's almost like the entire industry right now, though. The whole industry has this us against us attitude, don't you think?
Yes, I agree with 100%. And it's like, again, especially with us, we have to unify. That's what they're expecting. You know what I'm saying? They're expecting us to fight and not link, and then so they can come in and swoop in and take over the industry. And we can't allow that. It's just not, we cannot allow that. So
Hmm. Now, there's a lot of stigmas that you have to deal with. Do you feel like you need to set the precedence right now, being the first equity owner?
yes, um, like I didn't know that this was going to happen or I was going to be the person to be a part of leading that charge, but I have to accept that because I am the first. And again, like I said earlier, it'll be a disservice for me not to share this and not to let people see what's going on and who's doing it and who's behind it. There's no MSO behind me. There's no big corporate, big pharma. This is a Black owned dispensary that's selling cannabis legally as a result of the equity program. And I want somebody else to feel like that, another state, another city. I want Blunts and Moore to be the franchise that opens in all states to have equity and that be the flagship store. Those are my goals. And, I want other people to feel like that they can own in this space and be Black and not have to get raped out of their, license just to be great in this space. So, man, it sucks. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love the position that I'm in, but I need it to be more of us. You know what I mean? It has to be more. I'm fighting a fight just as one owner, but I'm linked with a lot of people, but we need more of a bigger voice, more representation. It can't just only be me, period.
Right. Right now, let me ask you: in your dispensary, do you have a grow license? Do you have completely vertical?
Okay, so I don't have a grow license yet because at the time I wasn't interested. I was just so focused on getting to the shop. But now I have a distro license, delivery. I'm working on a grow with one of my business partners. Can't say his name because he's a current NBA player, but we're working on grow now. So the model that would transfer when I go, across states will be a vertical. I'll have my store has a grow house attached to it, but that's my landlord's grow out. But it made me realize, okay, well, if we do franchise, I should have a grow up in the back, store up front, delivery, distro, and make it vertical. And that's what I'm on because I can hire all Black people, Montel. Like I can have all of my business be Black and brown people. Nothing against white people, love them to death. But I'm just saying, like, I can really be the equity store and train and empower other Black and brown people that they can succeed in this. And that's just that's the way to go. That's to me, that's the way to go.
Absolutely. Look, Tucky, you and I got to do something. I got to pay some bills real quick. So let me
Yep.
take a little break, and then we'll come back. And you've been listening to Let's Be Blunt with Montel. My friend Tucky, who's here, who's schooling us all about the equity programs that exist in cannabis. I'll take a little break. We'll be back right after this. Well, hey guys, thanks so much for being a part of the show today. Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Our guest today went from getting arrested for selling cannabis to owning the first equity-owned dispensary in the world, Blunts and Moore Dispensary in Oakland, California. This incredible man is a true testament to walking his own path. He's the owner of Proud Papa's Clothing and Proud Papa's Detailing. He worked as a detail trainer at Tesla and has over 30 years of auto detailing experience. He also graduated from Oaksterdam University in 2008 with a degree in cannabis, and he is the co-host of Talking Bluntly. And he's also a fifth-generation Oakland native. Tucky Blunt, thanks so much, sir, for being a part of Let's Be Blunt with Montel today, sir.
Man, thank you again for having me. Little secret y'all may not know. I remember when Montel was telling me about Let's Be Blunt a couple years ago. He's like, I'm
Absolutely.
gonna do a show called Let's Be Blunt. I'm like, man, that's my last name. I gotta get on there. So to be on here, bro, is like full circle. Full circle. I appreciate you.
It's insane, man. I'm still working. I'm gonna get this show out there. I mean, not only do I have the podcast, but I still think there's room for a cannabis-oriented television show on the air in all the states that have legal cannabis. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be talking about it. Again, that's what I said at the very top of the show. How ridiculous is it that you could have a product that's a legal product, but you can't advertise it? And not only that, but you're not even supposed to talk about it. Come on, stop. Stop it.
Crazy.
You're stupid, huh?
Crazy.
And talking about, you have a podcast that's Talking Bluntly. What's the name of it again?
Yes, Talking Bluntly. Me and Lady Divinity. Crazy story how that happened. So I'm a person that believes in just not limiting myself to one thing. So I got the store. I'm doing this. I'm speaking. Blah blah blah. But I knew I had a niche with hosting because I've hosted stuff before. I used to throw comedy shows and concerts in Oakland. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna do a podcast with Weed Maps, but they're in the process of doing their budgeting. So we go. Matter of fact, we talk tomorrow. But in the process of going through all this, I had a good friend of mine, and it's a Trip You Said TV. We got to talk offline because we're working on some stuff to have cannabis on TV. So we'll talk. But a group out of Oakland, some youngsters reached out and wanted me to host a podcast. I thought they wanted me to be on the podcast. So they did the research on me, like, man, we're gonna call it Talking Bluntly. And when they pitched it to me, they was like, we want you to come on. You know, it's like a testing product show. We test your product. We showcase Black and brown products that are going to be released at Black and brown dispensaries in the Bay Area. And we showcase that product, give them their shine, tell you where they can find them, etc. And it kind of like just fell in my lap, bro. Like I thought I was going on as a guest, and like, no, we want you to host. You need to be the voice of this. You need to talk to the people. You have relationships, and I'm doing this all free, just for the record. Like, I'm doing this just because the people need to have that voice. Everything is not about money all the time. So like podcasts is we're getting content now, kind of like how you doing with Let's Be Blunt. We're not dropping it probably for about another month or so. I got to do a bunch of interviews during Black History Month to highlight the equity program.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're doing. I'm working on my second podcast now, and I have someone working with like following me around just through my day-to-day life. Like, it's getting weird, but it's cool. It's like, you know, I got to share the message somehow. So Talking Bluntly is tight. Lady Divinity is a great co-host, super knowledgeable, and we're just having a good time. We're smoking, we're testing the product. But for me personally, if I can just be honest, I don't want it to just stay as a smoke testing podcast. Like, every weed I'm not going to like. So then I have to kind of like lie on camera and say, hey, this is this, you know what I'm saying? I may not really like it. It may not be for me. So I have to figure out a way to kind of like position it to do, you know, more showcasing of the brands per se and what they're doing within their community, whether I like the product or not. Not don't like it per se, but I'm an indica person. You understand?
I mean, like anybody that's out here, you know, sometimes somebody will hand you a nug, and you know, you throw it in your bowl and light it up. It's like, nah,
right. And we talking about we doing 3 to 4 shows every shooting. So, you know, I'm running in, changing clothes, got to smoke again. I'm still high already. So, you know, it's just, you know. But overall, great show, great concept. For people to reach out and do research on me, to have me host a show was humbling. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at with it.
That's great. And talk a little bit about your clothing line, man.
So me personally, I've sold and printed T-shirts since 1996. Like 16 was my year to work and sell. And over the years, I've made and sold T-shirts all throughout the Bay Area globally. But recently, being that I started, matter of fact, when I started, hold on. When I did the concert, I came up with this one. It's the evolution of the blunt.
There you go.
This shirt I sold, and $5 from every shirt went to a grant to give to an equity dispensary. I'm real big on fashion and wearing your own stuff. And I use that in my store too. Like, I can sell clothing. People don't realize there's no cannabis tax on clothing. That's more money you can make in the store. Like, don't just limit yourself, people that are listening. Like, don't just limit yourself to growing and selling. It's so much more you can do in this space. You can have apparel, you can have podcasts. You can be the person behind the scenes that's doing all the tech, the geek work for the podcast. That's a job. So, you know, me and the apparel just something that go hand in hand. I like to dress. So why not, wear my brand? And then it helps me see if other people want to wear it. Oh man, where you get that from? I want to wear that. Same with the Proud Papas. I started that in 2013. I got tired of seeing silhouettes on the internet that were just white silhouettes of fathers and kids. I'm like, where's the black silhouettes? So I created my own and went off without it, So yeah.
You've been also working in auto detailing. Talk a little bit about that, my friend.
My dad and uncle had a detail shop when I came out the womb. So my daddy started me first detailing at I think my first buff job I did was I was about 8. They serviced the Bay Area for a combined 45 years. And all of my friends knew that I could detail cars, but I would only detail my personal cars. And I finally was like, you know what, let me make some money. About 1920, I started detailing cars for other people and actually getting paid for it. And it was like, all right. And my detail Montel averaged about $300 to $400. Like I'm really like showroom, clean your vents, your mats, all that. And that led to my job at Tesla. Tesla called me off the street from my LinkedIn and said, hey, we want you to come train our detailers. I'm like, what you mean training? Like, no, we want to create a position for. So I'm the first ever certified detail trainer at Tesla anywhere in the world. They hired me off the street and created a position for me. Did it. It was going great. And then I got the call about the dispensary from Mike Marshall. He called me and was like, hey, I got somebody, trying to do something with the equity program. You want to do that? And I'm like, yeah, let's go try it out. And I'm here talking to you now. You know what I mean? So it's just like, and I apply, well, a lot of people don't realize, I tell my kids this, I talk about it a lot. I apply everything I've ever done in life to the space I'm in now. The marketing, the research, the nerd. I type 90 words a minute, bro. I'm a 4.0 student, graduated. I'm a street smart nerd. You understand what I'm saying? And I use all of that to help me build my brand. And it's allowed me to do things like this. Like to be able, for me, I told my daughter, well, my oldest daughter, she's 20. She came with me to Talking Bluntly to film last Sunday. And I said, man, I got a meeting with Montel on Wednesday. She wasn't familiar with you. I'm like, man, Montel is like, shit, the male Oprah, if you want it, for me growing up, you know what I mean? Like you, Phil Donahue, Oprah, like, you know what I'm saying? Those are people I grew up watching. For me to be able to be interviewed by you, bucket list, bro. Bucket list. Like, like for real, like you were in my house all of my childhood. You know what I'm saying? So to be able to talk to you about cannabis, yeah. Come on, Montel.
Well, you know what? I want to be talking a lot more about it, especially maybe you definitely always know you have a home here. Anytime you want to come back, any issues you want to talk about, make sure you come back to us because we love to have you. And let's talk about cannabis from an issue standpoint. Right out of your Bay Area, we have now the, Vice President of the United States.
Yes.
Literally, and I'm not as an aspersion, please believe me, I have the utmost respect for, our Vice President. I think, she's probably one of the smartest people I've ever sat down and talked to myself, and extremely knowledgeable, but has never been a friend of cannabis.
Facts.
And for all of us to, all of a sudden act like we got, a champion in our ranks, we don't.
Facts.
Back and you take a look at, during her tenure as AG, there were more arrests of Black and brown people than ever before in the history of California.
Correct.
And she had plenty of opportunity to change that dynamic and chose not to.
Correct.
Today, all we hear from her is this conversation about decriminalizing. And we know that that's not the direction that we need to go in. Right. Decriminalization still says, I'm doing something wrong.
Exactly.
I'm just going to take the penalty off of it. That's not right. We aren't doing anything wrong at all. And have a brown person not seem to get that throws me a little bit.
Right.
Because that's the reason why her boss, the president, was heard 6 months ago saying he still thought cannabis was a gateway drug.
Yes. Yes.
So what are your views on this, my friend? What do you think? I mean,
so for me personally, how I feel about that is, for one, we got to vote at the local level. You know what I'm saying? Because we vote for her as Attorney General. We voted her in there. So if you don't vote people that are for cannabis, you can't be mad about them not being for cannabis. The way we change that, again, is voting on the lower levels. By the time it gets to the presidency, it's too late. And I don't know if we forgot as a country how checks and balances work, or if we stopped teaching history class about government. Like, you have to vote locally and state to craft the laws for the federal. So that's one thing. And then two, you have to have people who are in the cannabis space making laws, or at least in the room with these people that are making laws. The reason why Biden can say gateway drug in 2020 is because he doesn't have anybody in his ear or on these posts or in this room that's helping guide him to the right conversation. Same thing with Kamala. Kamala was doing the job we voted her to do. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, especially when you have them right now, today and yesterday, talking about they are going to be purveyors of science. If
Yes.
they're going to be purveyors of science, then do the research and do the study and understand
Yes.
the science that's been done in the last 5 years alone
Yes.
has proved the efficaciousness of this plant-based medicine. I just throw that out there because
No, go ahead.
it ticks me off because, yes, we do need to be in that room, but I also think it's incumbent upon them.
They got to research. Yes. I mean, that's period. I mean, that's, again, we're back to education. I mean, we keep going back to the same words, and that can be applied on all levels. You can't make these laws or say this and say that without really educating yourself. And if you're going to be, our voted elected official, and you're not going to educate yourself, we're going to continue to have these conversations about cannabis because they're not going to be right. You know what I mean? I'm not pro or for Kamala or Biden. I'm a Democrat by default or whatever, and I voted for who, was going to get Trump out. But me personally, I don't give a dang who the person was going to be in the White House. Like you said, you have to do your research. You have to educate yourself on this plant and change the stigmatism. Like the whole, the whole war on drugs, the whole marijuana, reefer madness, all of that was propaganda, was to, like we said, put us in jail and this is a plant we're talking about. This is a plant with medicinal values. Like, so if you can't educate yourself on that, you are doing us a disservice. But again, until we can get more people in those rooms to have these conversations, you know what I mean? And for the record, I will say this, somebody from her office actually reached out. Amber Littlejohn, she works for the MCBA, the Minority Cannabis Business Association. That particular faction has some issues like weed maps, like the different people who had, white people ahead, and now they're trying to bring the black people in. They reached out specifically to me because they had heard about me in social equity, and they want me to go speak with Kamala. So yes, I want to go do that. You know what I mean? Like, come on, you know what I mean? But we have to start having those conversations, but conversations only go so far if you're not really doing the research. Because I can talk to you till you blue in the face. You got to go read it.
Right. Well, I'm going to tell you, if you need any help in that conversation, make sure you reach out.
Say less.
I will definitely go and help you if you need me to be there, my friend.
I'm telling you now. When we finish, I'm going to call Amber and tell her, hey, when I do come, Montel want to come. So
I should say all just 100% disclosure. Kamala and I had a relationship that didn't last long, so I don't know where we may fall in that, but
at the end of the day, this is about cannabis policy and reform. Correct. Not about who you like, who you don't like. If you're really in this office and you 80 million people that voted for you, and 65-70% of them are cannabis smokers and want to see the cannabis reform, you have to have these conversations. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, government is not supposed to agree with everybody. It's a democracy. So I can sit across from you and disagree with you 100%, but we can still figure out a way to work together. And that's just what I'm on, bro.
That's how we're supposed to be. And I can. What do you got? What you got coming down the pike, man? What's next?
So for what's next, we reopen, like I said, in about 3 weeks. That should be great. I can't wait for that. Opening my delivery service finally, distro service finally, and I'm looking to, like I said, I'm looking to franchise. I'm hoping. I can tell you this. So the way I got my deal set up now with my dispensary, I have after 3 years, I have the first right of refusal to buy the entire property, to grow out the whole property. So that's my goal. Number one is to start saving up to buy that. And then it's time to start franchising. As soon as these equity programs open up, I'm already in the conversation with the lobbyists and with the people in the government to make sure they're trying to do them right. Not just me, but everybody. But once that's in place, I want to franchise. I really, really want to franchise. And the model that I want to use is give that equity person 100% of their license. That's their license. We come in as 49% partners on the business. Of course, we're putting up all the money because you don't have it, but you get 51% of your business, all net, all your gross, whatever. And then the other 49%, the 49% can come from 49 people. It can come from 98 people. It can come from 206 people. And we just all put our money in and sit back every 3 months and collect a check. Like, I don't see why we can't do. I know too many personal millionaires that we can do that with. Like, you don't have to do nothing. You just write out, you F off money or anything else, cut this check for this Black-owned business and kick back every 3 months and collect from the quarter. You know what I mean? But, got to get in front of more people, have that conversation. Shout out to Al Harrington and Viola, a good friend of mine. We working on stuff like that. But what's next for me is global. Like, I'm not stopping at one store in East Oakland, period.
Well, we should have some conversations, my friend, offline. I would love to talk about it because I think I could be of service to you, especially the fact that I've worked in multiple states all over this country.
I know.
And helped to get the legislation passed that's in those states. So, it might be could do you a solid. You know what I mean?
Montel, whatever help you can offer, for one, I'd be greatly appreciative of, and the cannabis space would be. You know what I mean? Like, I really got to use my platform to do right by this. You know what I mean? I'm past the age of, I got 30 more years promised. You know what I'm saying? So I need to make these 30 as best as I can. So, man, I'd be honored to have any help you could provide, bro. For real.
That's it. So now, what advice would you give someone who wants to get started right now in business, and especially in the cannabis field?
Y'all finna be mad at me. Educate yourself. Like for real, if you want to get started in this space, the main question I get when I come out of these clubhouse rooms and my inbox going crazy, how do I get in the space? For one, you got to figure out what you want to do in the space. I can't tell you how to get in the space. I can tell you don't come for growing and selling, because those are the two hardest things to do in this space. But find your niche. Figure out what you want to do in the space, and then do the research on it and how it relates to the space. That's the best advice I give people. Like, do your research. Quit coming to people that are in the space and saying, "Hey, I want to get in. How do I get in?" That's too vague of a question. So
absolutely, and I think you hit on it, and I hit on it all the time here. And Let's Be Blunt, is I think that education is the most important thing, especially in the space itself, and especially what the space needs to start doing for itself.
Yes.
We spent so much time, being B2B.
Yep.
Trying our best to figure out how we can put another business down rather than how to go B2C. And that's educating the consumer, so the consumer will want to walk into your place and buy the product to begin with. Right now, there's still, the fact that there's people on the fence trying to figure out whether or not this is a gateway drug or not tells me how much education we're lacking.
Yes.
And the fact that, we still literally try to target a product towards just one demographic.
Yes.
And I'm not, believe me, I'm not in any way, shape, or form casting aspersions on, let's say, the younger demographic. What we don't know is that, there are a lot of baby boomers out there who were the people who were the legislators that helped to pass the legislative bills that recognized that when they were in their teens, they smoked a blunt under the bleachers, and they're still successful business people today.
Yes.
And the people who right now on 10, 15 different medications who recognize that, if I had slowed down some of that medication and got on a little bit of cannabis, I could actually literally get off some of that other stuff. And so we need to spend more time passing on the information that doctors and scientists are starting to find and discover, and making sure that the consumer has that readily right there in their hands.
Yes. That's the type of stuff we do at Blunt some more. Like, we had our bud tenders to educate and talk to people. Like, when I graduated from Oaksterdam, Montel, nobody was going to Oaksterdam. I was in the second Oakland class overall, because they was based out of LA. No, I got laughed at for going to Oaksterdam, but I knew I wanted to educate myself because I wanted to own in this space at some point in time. That was 2008. I would have not known that this was going to be, we'd be talking about this now, but I knew the importance of that then. And it's just like, the importance of education is key. And the reason why you talk about it, why other podcasts talk about it, is because it's not resonate. It's not, what's the word I'm looking for? We're not constantly hearing that word for no reason. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's a super lack of education, and that's why a lot of people are still against it. But the people that are for it, we just got to be able to, get in those rooms and have those conversations. Have you ever met Keith Stevenson before? So he's the owner of Purple Heart in Oakland, the first Black-owned dispensary anywhere in the world. Y'all should talk.
Okay, for sure.
Y'all should definitely talk, because he's doing the same type of thing. He Start the equity program. He's up in Sacramento helping craft laws. He's that person, and he's an OG in the game. He's I want to say in almost 60, and he's been quiet a lot. And I've been kind of like, bro, you need to talk, because when you hear Purple Heart, a lot of people don't realize that's owned by a black man. They don't that's owned by a black man. He's the fourth longest running dispensary anywhere in the world, first black. And I just think somebody you should network with too, because me and him are doing the same thing. We're going to these boards to talk to Sacramento's and talk to the Kamalas, et cetera. So yeah, we got to talk offline, bro, for real.
Really, man, for sure. We definitely have to. And I gotta say thank you so much, Keith, for being a part of this, man. I mean, to have an opportunity to talk to you today and to share what you're doing, Tucky. I think people need to understand Blunts and Moore is out there. If anybody wants any more information about you, man, where do they go? What website do they go?
Tucky Blunt 80 is my personal page. The Blunts and Moore page is Blunts BLUNTSANDMOORE. Excuse us, our website is down because I'm not open, but the website will be back up soon. I'm on Twitter at Blunt Tucky. I'm on the Clubhouse, but don't come on there. It's just a bunch of propaganda on there. But I'm around. My inbox is open. I try to help as much as I can, as long as the questions are, legitimate. But we have to share this message, period. So I applaud you for, having me on your platform and sharing your platform with me.
Absolutely. And the Blunts and Moore is open right now.
No, we're not. We remember we shut down about a month ago doing some cleaning. We'll be back open for you guys in about 3 weeks. And Montel can tell you, we kind of look like an eye store on the inside. Like, a lot of people come in and like, this black owned? I love that. I love hearing that. Like, yeah, this is.
It looks like an Apple store. I mean,
Yep.
Really, really, really nicely done. Really, really professionally done. And all of your staff had a really good professional attitude. Address, in case somebody goes out.
701 66th Avenue, Oakland, California, directly across the street from the Alameda Oakland Coliseum.
All right, well, Tucky Blunt of Blunts and Moore. He's been our guest today on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. And make sure you drop by the store if you get a chance and reach out to Tucky, see if you can get some information if you want. And I'm going to say again, sir, thank you so much for sharing that wealth of knowledge. And anytime you want to come back, let me know, okay?
Appreciate you, Montel.
Absolutely. So, right after I got you. You keep tuning in to Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback also, so please send us your comments.